Nobody likes Orisa, or at least playing against her. There are a couple reasons for this, but the big reason is, of course, Fortify. So how can we change Fortify and maybe Orisa as a whole to make her more engaging for all parties? So, if you have been watching this series, this one's going to be a little different. This is what I'm going to be calling a mini unfixable. Basically, I've been out of town for the weekend. Also, I've done a lot of these, so I need to take a little bit more time to get the last couple fully thought out in my brain. So, for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and just give you a mini one. Basically, what this is going to be, it's just I'm going to look at one aspect of a character, or basically just change an ability or something, or maybe add something. Basically, like, what would that do for certain characters? Originally, I was going to do one about Cassidy, but since the devs have already confirmed that Cassidy is going to be getting some changes to his mag grenade, which is what I was going to change, guess what? We are going to go straight onto Fortify. Fortify, a very, very, I don't even want to call it controversial ability. It's just a very good ability, and one that nobody really likes. So, before we get into this, full disclosure, I like Orisa. That's why I'm not giving her a full rework. I think there's a lot to work with here. I think her spear is very satisfying to hit and allows for some great playmaking. I think spin is a very unique disruption ability that it's hard to get a lot of the full value out of, and it's good to have an ability that you have much more situational use for it that gives it a lot more high skill. I think the overheat mechanic, in theory, allows for a really fun resource management, like moment-to-moment gameplay loop. I think resource management is really fun, and it makes characters generally engaging. I think Ori is kind of saved by the resource management overall. And, of course, there is Fortify, which is the hit the button, shoot, and do not die button. And that's kind of it. And nowadays, you even move slower when you cast it, so it feels worse to use, and it just isn't very interesting. So basically, what do I want out of Ori? Well, I want her to be I want her to not be so defensive, to be so sustainable. I want her to be able to make plays that are aggressive with the kit that she has, rather than kind of using the tools that she has to react, because basically she should just be kind of more near the back and spamming and shooting until the perfect opportunity just to hit Fortify and run in with the rest of her team. Most of the time, that's not going to happen. She's just going to be stalling for time and being really annoying at the ranges she's effective at. So I wanted to make it so that Ori cannot and should not be able to just sit back and wait and watch. She's going to have to be a little more aggressive, and she's not going to be nearly as tanky. So I have basically two ideas for how I would like to change Orisa and Fortify. I'm going to give you the long, big one, the more radical changes first, and then I'm going to kind of give you like the middle ground solution, because I think that this first idea set is it's a little much, and I don't see a practical way for it to be implemented, and the second kind of way just kind of melds two things together. And I think that is probably the more feasible, realistic option. But I figured, I kind of want to throw this out there and see if it's something that sticks or it's something that's a good idea. So, before we get on how we are going to change Fortify, because Fortify itself is not going to be changing too terribly much other than some balance things. Really, where the juice and the sauce comes from, it's going to be in a new passive called Gallop. Okay? So basically what this is that I've heard similar suggestions like this before Rework Ori happened. But basically, she can now potentially move faster than normal for the price of heat. So basically, she can move faster than regular run speed, but she has to use overheat for it, right? Basically, when she's moving faster, the heat meter is building up. She can use any cooldown she would like while this is active. However, she would continue to build heat even when they are used. So think of it like this. When your primary fire is used, it's building up heat. And when you throw a javelin, you can't use your primary fire, so you will effectively lose the heat, right? And it will go up and down. But since she's galloping and she can use the full part of her kit, think of it like Gallop uses like her gun does. It uses heat, but since she uses abilities and it doesn't stop her from running, then she'll continue to build up heat even if she uses abilities. If she is firing while she's galloping and decides to use an ability, then she will, it will only stop the buildup from the primary fire and not the other stuff. So basically, I want you to think of just like Ori now has a way to get in more effectively. Now remember, Fortify is going to be very much changed, so don't think she's just going to be Fortify and run in and all of that. I've thought about that. Bear with me for a second. Basically, this is just kind of a new way for her to interact with the heat gauge. And I also wanted Ori, basically you give her this nice, good mobility stuff, and you kind of increase her power level. So I think that there should be a bigger penalty for overheating. And I think that should come with either, an ability lockout, so you can't use your abilities while you're overheated, or maybe just, a slow or something like that. I think some kind of penalty for being overheated will compensate for the nice additions that she gets to her kit. Basically, the big problem here is just that I don't quite know how you would be able to activate it. I had a couple ideas. One, she's just always running, so when she moves forward, she's always using her heat. That felt like a really weird solution, and just I want to walk forward, but, I don't have heat, now I'm just, stuck here. Didn't quite like that option. The second option was just it takes a second while she's walking forward, and then she starts going, but that feels a little clunky in my head, and it feels like it probably she wouldn't be able to keep track of it or do it when she wants to. So I kind of also decided against that a little bit. So what I landed on here is that Ori is going to lose her crouch because it doesn't really do much anyways, and that crouch would be the way that you distinguish, is the button that you hit to distinguish when you want to run and when you don't, right? Gallop, rather. So you have actual total control over when you are galloping. And remember, this takes overheat, and so it doesn't really need to be on a cooldown, because there is not a penalty, but there's potential risk when you're using this ability. So keep that in mind with these Fortify changes in mind, and I'll put the whole big picture together about why I think this will be much healthier for Ori. So basically, for the actual ability rework, Fortify is going to have multiple changes, and it will shake up how it actually works. The first change that I want is that I think Ori should just be able to be headshot during Fortify. It'll make her a lot squishier. And with the armor changes and the headshot damage reduction, I feel like she'll be more than okay with whatever kind of damage reduction it has, even if she got a little less too. Basically, less sustain, more interaction with her while she is fortifying. I don't want her to just go fortify and then you just kind of have to ignore her for the whole time. I want her to be interactable during this ability, which will make it more, it'll give her more skill and less opportunities to use fortify, because there's going to be times where it's going to be a lot worse. And there's other changes I'm about to get to that will make it more appealing to use fortify in different situations. So, blah, blah, blah. I would say the damage reduction probably want to be significantly reduced. She gets to keep taking this, but it's much easier to deal with. Okay, and then the big thing, or one of the big things I think, is that Fortify being kind of her being CC immune for the entire duration feels a little ridiculous to me. I think that she should only be CC immune for maybe a second, okay? So when she pops it, she gets the CC immunity, and then the rest of the Fortify is just, damage reduction or whatever. Basically, again, being able to interact with Ori during Fortify, but I still want her to be able, I guess, more timeliness to when she pops it, right? More thought about when she is going to pop Fortify, because she only gets the CC reduction or immunity for a second. So it's, more beneficial for Ori to kind of try to use it in in anticipation of what the enemy is doing, or in reaction, right? She's not just gonna hold it and just hold and never be able to be moved. She can be moved eventually. It's just the CC should be more skillful and more thoughtful in my opinion. Again, that's not like the big issue with Fortify. Like I already kind of assessed the big issue with Fortify was the tankiness, but I think it just makes the ability a little more engaging for both parties at the end of the day. And then the only thing else I've got here for Fortify is that the big thing that I want is that I want Fortify to reset her overheat cooldown, or basically just completely reset, give her all of her overheat back. I guess cool her down completely, so that she doesn't just have to use this ability defensively. There is an aggressive incentive to using this ability. Now, with this in mind, you know how with primary fire you would stop the build-up gauge with using one of your other abilities, spear, or your spear abilities rather. Now with the Gallop and the overheat in mind, you now have an ability that prevents the build-up of your what's it called, your running. So now you can combo this with run and potentially lose out on a lot of the what's it called, a lot of the value of this ability, like the CC immunity and the damage reduction, just so that you can keep your overheat up to continue your pressure or to escape more often or something like that. I feel like that is much healthier, that Ori is not sustainable, but she's still survivable in certain ways. And this allows Ori to get around the map better. I think it allows her to actually brawl like you kind of want her to, instead of people walking at her because they have to. Ori can make the engages now, but she has to be much more careful about how she uses these engages and how she goes about it. I think that this brings Ori's kind of playstyle and their general moment to moment back in line with what it should be and what the fantasy of the character, like the character I want. And it alleviates a lot of that frustration with Ori just sitting there being super tanky, super sustainable, nothing you can do about it. So yeah, that's kind of the in a perfect world, I think that's the implementation I would want. I think in a realistic world, the run being like a passive, the Gallop is a little kind of whatever, and it may not work or function like I think it does. So I would also be totally chill with a version of Fortify that only has the Fortify stuff at the beginning, and it makes her go, like, think about Fortify like it is now. It only at the beginning for a second or two, while she charges up a Gallop. And once she's in the Gallop, then the overheat and all of that stuff happens. And maybe she gets like a little extra thing. But that did seem a little samey to like overrun or something. But kind of, I wanted her to use it more of like, what's it called? Probably escape or just like repositioning. That would probably be like the most sense, and like just how the game, like, you don't have to add an extra thing or something. But I would like Ori to have full control over her movement and stuff like that. But that is kind of it. Again, this was a mini rework. I didn't even make a slideshow. I just kind of showed you some footage in the background. But I would like to hear what you guys think. I know Ori is contentious and she is kind of dead right now, but if she ever got meta again, I know people will be complaining, and this is exactly what they'll be complaining about. So I'd like to kind of hit the nail on the head and kind of say, like, here's an idea for Orisa. This is not a foolproof concept. It doesn't really make sense. You'd have to take away something to give her this. So there's a lot that could be addressed with it, but I think it's a good, like, mental starting place about, like, what do we care about? Like, what do we want Fortify to be? What do we want to keep from it, and what do we want to get rid from it? But yeah, if you guys are fans of this series, please, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like, comment. I love to hear back from you guys about this stuff. It actually has helped me determine which characters I'm going to be taking a look at. But also, I'm kind of winding down this series in its current form, just because there are so many heroes in Overwatch, and there's only so many ideas for complete reworks that I can come up with that aren't just complete, well, I just needed something, so I threw something together. I don't really want to do that. I want to give you something quality, something to actually chew on. But hopefully in the future, I will be getting you some unique hero concepts, some new stuff. So please be on the lookout for that in the future. But for the time being, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to get on these discussion live, that's going to be twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. I do a discussion every single time I go live. I'd love to hear back from you guys live. If you guys want to send me some suggestions, some rework ideas, anything like that, my Discord is down below. I do like looking at that stuff on stream and even potentially making videos about it. So if you've got a crazy concept and you want to let me know, maybe I'll check it out on stream. But thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day.